Good morning, students of class 11. So, it is the third video of class 11 taken from Hornbill. The lesson is Silk Road, and whatever I told you about this very lesson that I am continuing line by line explanations. What did happen? There was a swath of the white stuff that was lying across the track when they started moving. It had been stretched up to 15 meters before it petered out and the dirt trail appeared. So the snow continued on either side of them. It was smooth and there was an abrupt bank on the upslope side. The bank was too steep for their vehicle to move on, so there was no way around there. So when they joined Daniel, as Satan stepped onto the encrusted snow, began to slither and slide forward. Means the car started to slither and slide forward, stamping his foot from time to time to ascertain how sturdy it was, how strong it was. He looked at his wristwatch. It was at 5,210 meters above sea level. They could see the height. The snow did not look so deep to him, but the danger was not its depth. Daniel said so much as its icy top layer. If they slipped off, the car would turn over, he suggested. So they started grabbing the handcuffs of dirt and flinging them across the frozen surface. They both pitched in and fling them across the frozen surface, and when the snow was spread with soil, Daniel and the narrator stayed out of the vehicle to lighten Satan's load. He backed up and drove toward the dirty snow, eased the car onto its icy surface, and slowly drove its length without apparent difficulty. After 10 minutes, they stopped at another blockage. Not good, sir, Satan announced. And this time he decided to try and drive around the snow. The slope was steep and studded with major rocks, but somehow Satan negotiated them. His four-wheel drive vehicle was lurching from one obstacle. It was a big difficulty to the next. Doing so, he cut off one of the hairpin bends, regarding the trail further up where the snow had not drifted. So now he checked his watch again, and they continued to climb. In the bright sunshine, they crept past 5,400 meters, and his head began to throb horribly. He took gulps from his water bottle, and he supposed to help a rapid ascent. They finally reached the top of the pass at 5,515 meters. It was marked by a large cairn of rocks, festooned with white silk scarves and ragged prayer flags. There were ragged prayer flags. They all took a turn around the cairn in a clockwise direction, as in the tradition. And Satan checked the tires on his wheel, and then he stopped at the petrol tank and partially unscrewed the top. Why? Because it was emitted loud hiss. The lower atmospheric pressure was allowing the fuel to expand, and it sounded dangerous to him. Here Satan laughed, but there was no smoking. His headache soon cleared as they carried down the other side of the pass. It was 2 o'clock by the time. They stopped for lunch. They ate hot noodles inside a long canvas tent, part of the war camp erected beside a dry salt lake. The plateau was pockmarked with salt flats and brackish lakes, vestiges of the Tethys Ocean, which bordered Tibet before the great continental collision that lifted it skyward. This was one of the most heavy activity, men with pickaxes and shovels walking with difficulty back and forth in their long sheepskin coats, salt encrusted boots they had. All had put on sunglasses against the glare as a steady stream of blue trucks emerged from the blinding white lake laden with piles of salt. It was so terrible. In the late afternoon, they had reached a small town of Hor. What is a small town? Hor, H-O-R. Back on the main east-west highway that followed the old trade route, from Lhasa to Kashmir. Daniel, who was returning to Lhasa, found a ride in a truck, so Satan and he, narrator, bade him farewell outside a tire repair shop. They had suffered 2 punctures in quick succession on the drive down from the Salt Lake, and T. Satan was eager to have them fixed since they left him with no spares. Means there was no spare tire. Besides the second tire, he had changed, and it had been replaced by one that was as smooth as his bald head. What did happen then? What kind of place was Hor? It was miserable place. There was no vegetation whatsoever, just dust and rocks liberally scattered with years of accumulated refuse, which was unfortunate given that the town sat on the shore of Lake Mansarovar. It is the Tibet's most fascinating place where he could go when he treated a stretch of water. Ancient Hindu and Buddhist cosmology pinpoints Mansarovar as the source of 4 great Indian rivers. What is this? It is the source of 4 great Indian rivers, that is the Indus, the Ganges, the Satluj and the Brahmaputra. Actually, only the Satluj flows from the lake, but the headwaters of the others all rise nearby on the flanks of Mount Kailas. The narrator and all of them were thinking a striking distance of the great mountain, and he was eager to move ahead. But he had to wait. T. Satan told the narrator to go and drink some tea in the horse-only cafe, which was like other building in town. It was constructed from badly painted concrete and had 3 broken windows. The good view of the lake through one of them helped to compensate for the drought. He was served by a Chinese youth in military uniform who sprayed the grease around his own table with a filthy rag before bringing him a glass and a thermos of tea. Really, it was comfortable. Half an hour later, T. Satan relieved him from a solitary confinement, and they all drove past a lot more rocks and rubbish westwards out of town towards Mount Kailas. Now, from Hor, they moved towards Mount Kailas. His experience in Hor came as a stark contrast to accounts he had read of earlier travelers first encountered with Lake Mansarovar. Ikai Kawaguchi Ikai Kawaguchi, EkaiKawguchi, Ikai Kawaguchi, a Japanese monk who had arrived there in 1900. He was so moved by the sanctity of the lake that he burst into tears. He became very sentimental. A couple of years later, the hallowed waters had a similar effect on Sven Hedin. Sven Hedin, Hedin, a Swede. It is a caste who was not prone to sentimental outbursts. Means he did not become sentimental. It was dark by the time they finally left again, and after 10:30 p.m. they drew up outside a guest house in Darchen, Darchen place, for what turned out to be another troubled night. Kicking around in the open air rubbish tongue that passed for the tongue of who had set off his cold once more. Though, if truth was revealed, really it could have been a very big problem, but they needed something. One of his nostrils, the narrator's nostrils, was blocked again, and he was just feeling sleepy. He was not convinced that the other would provide him with sufficient oxygen. His watch told him that he was at 4,760 meters height. It was not much higher than Rahu. 4,760 meters. It was there. He had been gasping for oxygen several times every night. He had grown accustomed to these nocturnal disturbances by now. Means he was disturbed at night, but they still scared him. Really, he was afraid. So children, let me end this video here. Thank you, all of you, for listening to me. Thank you.